Happy belated Thanksgiving, everyone. Sober Oni of GNA Reviews here with a servant spotlight for everyone's favorite not Ku, not Shisho Irish Lancer, Diarmuid. We'll be examining his skills and his stats, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize him effectively, and an overall grade comparing him to how he stacks up to the other 3-star servants. I have a spotlight up for the other new 3-star servant, Fergus, as well, so please do check that out on the channel today, right after this one. Now on to Diarmuid's stats. Diarmuid's max HP of 10,098 is second only to Hector among the 3-star Lancers and among the top of all 3-star servants in general. For attack, Diarmuid's 6,877 max attack is less impressive. It is the second lowest among all 3-star Lancers and slightly below average among all 3 stars in general. Taking a look at his skills, Diarmuid's first skill is Mind's Eye True, rank B, which gives him an evade for 1 turn and increases his defense for 3 turns between 9 to 18% depending on level. His second skill is Love Spot, rank C, which decreases the attack of all females for 1 turn between 30 and 50% depending on level. And his final skill is Night Tactics, rank B, which increases crit star drop rate for 3 turns between 30 to 50%. As for his passives, he only has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases debuff resist by 17.5%. Moving on to his deck and Noble Phantasm, Diarmuid has a light quick deck. It's Quick Arts Buster with a quick Noble Phantasm. Diarmuid's Noble Phantasm deals significant damage to a single target depending on the level. It removes buffs, and it also inflicts curse for 5 turns between 500 to 1500 damage depending on overcharge. It can be further strengthened through an interlude, which will up the damage modifier. Taking a closer look at his cards, we see that he has a 2-hit quick card, his arts card has 2 hits, his buster card has 2 hits, and his extra attack has 4 hits. His Noble Phantasm gain is 0.79% and his star rate is 12.3%. He has average Noble Phantasm gain and star generation just due to a dual quick and arts deck but low hits. I feel like I could make this a very short video because it can pretty much just be summed up with the phrase, he isn't Ku. That isn't to say Diarmuid isn't good, but he suffers from being a quick 3-star Lancer in the same universe where Ku exists. To be fair, there are 4 stars that suffer from this too, but that's a story for another time. That aside, and expectations lowered, Diarmuid is a passable, if highly situational Lancer. Having Mind's Eye is great, it isn't protection from arrows great, but evade is evade and it's always good. The defense buff doesn't hurt either. Knight's Tactics is also a strong skill. A 50% increase in crit star drop rate for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown can actually turn Diarmuid from an average star generator into a pretty decent one, especially if you give him a decent craft essence on top of it. His signature skill is Love Spot. It decreases the attack of all females by 50% for a single turn, and that's a fantastic ability in very niche situations. Now, a 50% attack debuff is huge, especially considering it always hits, but when you take into account it's only 1 turn, meaning you're only going to use it when your enemy is about to Noble Phantasm you, and you usually only fight 1 servant at a time, you realize that this would have just worked better if it was a stun instead of an attack down. Since the only time this is preferable to a single target stun is if you're facing a group of female enemy bosses all about to Noble Phantasm you, which isn't that often. But while it could be better, it isn't horrible. I would recommend leveling Knight's Tactics or Evade first though, depending on whether you plan on using Diarmuid as a crit star generator or just a general purpose Lancer, and then save Love Spot for last. Diarmuid's Noble Phantasm is good though. Much like Gaebog, it's a high damage single target Noble Phantasm, making it ideal for boss killing, but it does have a slight edge in that it removes enemy buffs, much like Media's Rulebreaker does. The curse effect isn't worth much, but debuff removal is always fantastic, especially if you use this before another Noble Phantasm from another servant just to dispel any defensive buffs or evades that the enemy might have up. Unfortunately, Diarmuid doesn't have the best Noble Phantasm charge rate in the world, so this isn't as spammable as Media's. And Diarmuid pretty much has 2 roles. He can work as your general purpose Lancer, assuming you don't have Ku, or Liz, or Romulus, or Shisho, or he can work as a semi-quick support capable of providing crit stars removing enemy buffs and lowering enemy attack. If you're going to go the all-rounder Lancer route, as I suspect many will, the usual supports apply. He works well with Hans, Medea Lily, Mosh as defensive supports, and Waver, Shisho, Atlanta, and Caesar can provide offensive support. Although why you would ever want to use Shisho as a support for Diarmid is beyond me. Personally, given the current state of the game and the lack of quick supports and crit star generators in NA right now, I think he functions slightly better as a quick support. He can provide crit stars with night tactics for the likes of crit servants like Anne and Mary, Ushi, Shisho, Okita, and Emiya, just to name a few, and he can clear up any pesky buffs that the enemy might have that get in the way of your team doing some serious damage. As for his craft essence, his bond craft essence is a Knight's Oath, which increases arts and quick card effectiveness for all allies by 10%. And this is a good craft essence that further emphasizes his viability as a semi-support servant. I would suggest using Be Elegant instead though to increase his crit star drop rate even further if you're going to be using him as a crit star generator. And if you're using him as a regular old Lancer, then just go with Imaginary Around, Kaleidoscope, or Halloween Princess, the usual suspects. I don't suggest using any crit damage boosting or absorbing craft essence on him though, simply because they would be wasted on him. He isn't a crit Lancer. If that's what you want, you should probably just use Ku Prototype instead. My overall opinion of Diarmid could be boiled down to use Ku instead, whether that be regular Ku or Prototype Ku, but to elaborate on that, he has some interesting skills and a bit of utility since he can make for a passable all-rounder Lancer capable of doing damage, surviving, and boss killing if you just don't have Ku. He also functions decently as a crit support with Knight's Tactics and Be Elegant coupled with buff removal in his Noble Phantasm. However, as a go-to Lancer, even leaving Ku aside, you have Romulus, you have Ku Prototype, and they're far better options in my opinion because their damage output is just higher. And while Diarmid can make crit stars, it requires a lot. You need Knight's Tactics and Be Elegant just to make him a passable crit star generator when you could just be using Hassan instead. The one area that sets him apart from his other far superior peers is his anti-female skill, and even that's just not much to write home about. Diarmid isn't bad on his own, but compared to all the other options available, he's just extremely outclassed and not really the best option for anything you want to do. So he gets a C+ from me. Well, those are my thoughts on Diarmid. Unfortunately, his fate in Fate Grand Order isn't much better than his fate in Zero, but let me know what you think in the comments and if you've been finding him useful personally. Also, please check out the Fergus Spotlight, also up on the channel today, link in the description, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please join the party at our Discord and follow us on Twitter. With that, I'll see you all in the next Spotlight. Sober Oni out. Later.